The views expressed in this podcast are always teleprompter free. No speech writers here other than me. Hopefully good for a laugh, always striving for the truth. Welcome to Grounded, the place to hear the salty truth. I'm your host, Scott Cates, coming to you live from the Northeast Georgia mountains at the tiny town of Tiger. 40 days in retrospect today. 40 days. Tried my best to be silent for 40 days. I really did try to stay away from media altogether. Wasn't entirely successful at that just because of all that's happened in the last 40 days. So as I go back in retrospect, I can look and tell you that I didn't text much. That's one thing I didn't do. I tried my best to actually sort of go vintage in my communication, which meant I actually talked to someone by phone. I kind of like that. Being able to pick up and say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Or actually having verbal dialogue works for me. And I like it, actually. Text messaging, there can be too many things that are really go off in any different direction, so and it can be read any different way. I do kind of like that verbal conversation. Didn't go as far as landline, but I did actually did my best to put my phone down and not look at it all the time. I can tell you that the freedom from media in the first few weeks was pretty amazing. I was overwhelming at first, and then all of a sudden, in the last 40 days, so many different things happen. I mean, we have a president that's shot, another that drops out of an election, someone with 0 votes from the American people is put in his place. We have a hurricane that actually camps out in the southeastern states. The world economy teeter-totters, and the market goes insane in ways that we haven't seen pretty much since the recession of 2007 and 8. The world is the closest to World War III that I think we probably have been in my lifetime. Iran positions to raid Israel, or to launch an attack on Israel. I've never seen quite as close as we are. The Last Supper is mocked by drag queens in France in front of every tribe of every nation at the Olympics. That's a major ordeal. Kind of makes me wonder what's coming ahead. Maybe this is ushering in the end times. I'm not sure if I would be in shock if it wasn't the case on that. Plus, whatever else has sort of come down the pike, it's been a sort of landmark headlines every week. And I know some of you are probably waiting to hear me talk about Kamala Harris's running mate. Oh, my goodness, we'll get into some of that here in a little bit. I think there's enough going on right there. So with all of that, 40 days in retrospect, I could see history was changing and has been and probably will. There'll be these sensational headlines again up until the election, which I know some of you think that the election is that first Tuesday in November. But truthfully, the election that is coming is actually starting on September the 6th. Now, this is an important date that you understand because most people actually do go out and early vote, and they're pushing an early vote. This is also one of the reasons why the debate was not planned until September the 10th. And this is one of the reasons why Ms. Harris will not agree to a debate until after the fact. Also one of the reasons why Mr. Trump wanted a debate to happen on September the 4th so that the American people could see the difference in the policies. Truth be known, you can see that you can go to Trump's website and look at every single piece of everything that he's got as far as policy-wise. You can go to her website and see that there aren't many policies there. It's been interesting that over the weekend, an article had come out and is being touted now as an evangelical, talks about what the reason to vote for Harris. And you get through the article and you see scrap policy. Now, let's not even talk about policy. Let's just talk about the choice of words, basically, here is what this article ends up going to. And the bottom line in this article says that Trump is making the Republican Party cruel, so we should vote for Harris because she's the joyful candidate. And this is what you're hearing. She's just the joyful candidate. She's all smiles and, she's photo ready, photo op at any moment. But she's not ready as far as taking the questions. She can't take them. There is no policy, nothing there yet. Still working on that. And not sure she's going to have it. And most likely don't expect a whole lot there before an election because right now she has support. And so at this point, what happens is if they can get to that election on September 6th, that early voting that starts ahead of time, September 6th, those votes will be cast. And you won't have time by the 10th comes in case she bombs the debate. You won't have time to retract those votes. So that's the whole purpose for this happening. I'll give you my policies at the debate. We'll talk about that at the debate. I'll give you my ideas on that. And some of these she does not even have. She's like, well, I'll work on the economy after I get elected. I'll have a plan for that. We'll see. Maybe that will come out because a lot of pressure is coming from both sides of the media right now about wanting to know, okay, so what are you actually about? So in case that doesn't come, I did want to talk policies a little bit, but I want to do this from a little different standpoint. And this is something you're not hearing from the media in general. But all of the lawsuits that have been brought about against the Biden administration for the overreaching of their policies, for the overreaching of their regulations that have gone well beyond the overreaching of the Biden administration into everyday Americans' lives and businesses that have gone well beyond what they should have, and having to actually go to court to protect the American citizens and businesses from these issues. It's happened in record numbers. Now, there are so many court cases that I can't spend the entire hour today going through all of those cases, but I will address some of those and some of the things that are happening currently right now that we're looking at as a result of economic policies and a result of things that are happening to the economy and what you're about to see coming forward. So in retrospect, we're going to go back, not just 40 days, but we're going to go back and look at court cases over the last year or so, or maybe a little more, to just take a look at a few of these court cases that have come having to deal with the Biden-Harris administration. Now, don't tune me out yet because you really need to hear these things. As before I get into all of that, I was talking about the fact 40 days in retrospect. I read an enormous amount of books. I read a number of books. Some of you heard me talk about the book Obvious by Alban Sadar. Read that. It's a great book. Little small chapters to read through, small subjects to read through. Really good about it's seeing evil in plain sight and what to do about it. And it covers a number of issues that we have been talking about. But there are other books that I have been going through this summer that I have really, really, really enjoyed. And so as a result of that, you'd heard me talk about American history and quotes from founding fathers, but I want to recommend some of these to you as we get started today. Now, I don't have these necessarily in a particular order, but I will begin with some that I found were amazing. The first one that I have that I'm just got in my hand right now is Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. Lies My Literal Teacher Told Me by Wilfred Riley. Wilfred Riley. This book is great. And I just want to express to you the views from Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. Mr. Riley is an associate professor of political science at Kentucky State University. He has been a commentator and a writer for a number of media outlets, for sure, but he covers lies that we were taught through the years, having to go through social issues, but also history. It's pretty amazing. Debunking the false narratives that define America's school curricula. This is a great book if you can stomach. If you've got a weak stomach, chapter 2 is a bloody chapter. It is in that. But when you get beyond that, going through the lies that have been taught throughout the 20th century and into the 21st century, he covers in this book. It is important. I do want to mention that he is African American writing this book. And he covers race and the race agenda. It's really, really good. So it's called Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. That's the first book. I told you I'd tell you my summer book reading. Of course, The 56 by Douglas McKinnon. Liberty Lessons from Those Who Risked All to Sign the Declaration of Independence. The 56 is fantastic. It's a great book. I've read it a number of times, but I went back through it again, covering the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. A really, really, really good book. Continuing with American history, The American Story. There are 2 volumes written by David and Tim Barton. The Beginnings and Building the Republic. The American Story, a 2-volume set that is here. It is phenomenal. Really, really good about how the nation was founded, the beginnings of it, and how the republic was actually built. So worth getting and holding on to. And then, of course, a great book. Now, this book is really intellectual. So when you get into this book and start to cover this book, for me, I would go maybe a few pages and put it down and process it a little bit before I went on. But it is Mark Levin and The Democrat Party Hates America. You want to read a good book? This is a great book about the ideology of the Democrat Party currently today, how it got to that place, where they came from. It is really good. Again, The Democrat Party Hates America, Mark Levin. Good book. Fantastic. Then, as I go down, Religionless Christianity, I read also this summer, written by Eric Metaxas. It was pretty good. But if you've not read Letter to the American Church, that would be a good precedent to read as well. And then 2 books I believe every single American family should own. So listen carefully as I get down to these 2 books, because I believe they are of utmost importance to have. And this is about the founders writing to us currently today, using their words and their quotes written to an America today. And there are 2 volumes. The first one written was The Founder's Speech to a Nation in Crisis. The author of these books is Stephen Rabb. The Founder's Speech to a Nation in Crisis. I ordered the first book. I got it. When I read it, I was blown away. As a matter of fact, my study that I have, the wall is covered in quotes. I love sticky notes. I love these Post-it notes, and the ones that are lined that are about a 4x6, lined. I love these notes, but the entire back wall, it looks like a beautiful mind. I mean, seriously, there are hundreds of quotes that are written out of these books that I see every day, that I just Post-it noted every one that spoke to my heart and began to post those on the wall. It's been a summer of quotes, but this is fantastic. The Founder's Speech to a Nation in Crisis was the first one I read. And then I got The Founder's Speech to Save America by the same author, Stephen Rabb. Folks, let me say, every single family ought to own both volumes, and you should get it in hardcover so that you can keep them. The Founder's Speech to Save America, I would have read first. If I had to go back and do it over again, I would have wanted to read that first. The first chapter in this book is called Awakening, and it is fantastic. Each chapter, as it unfolds, you sit on the edge of your seat. There were times I was brought to tears listening to these men, because these things were the things that were held out and held away from us when we were children, I think, so that we would never know where we came from. And I'm old, so I'm just telling you right now, it will blow your mind when you read these books. The Founder's Speech. It's a series you can get. You can order them pretty much anywhere. These are fantastic books. and I would recommend those. That's just a part of my book reading this summer. I was also into Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville. I don't know how 800 glorious pages of that. Boy, that was a challenge. I've also been recently into some of Winston Churchill's writings, other things like that. But these will be the ones on the list that I wanted to recommend to you today. So continuing on. Having read those books and understanding how important the foundation of the office of the President of the United States is, I felt it important today to talk policies, not the joyful candidate versus the grumpy or the cruel candidate or whatever, the joyful candidate versus the cruel party. We hear, when Tim Walz got up to speak, I watched all 19 minutes of that speech of him saying, Republicans are just weird. Good grief, man. The reality, when you look at the background there, wow. Won't even go into all of those details, but it's who's the weirdest. It's become all about this. It feels, again, like a high school presidential campaign. Middle school, really, presidential campaign. But I want to talk issues because we're really in serious condition as a nation. We're looking at the market flounder. They're hoping that it lasts long enough to get to the election. But, man, I'm telling you, it's beginning to sort of just tumble. I made a drive to Alabama this past weekend coming back, but on the way there, I was shocked. After not having been there for about 5 or 6 weeks, so many of the mom and pop stores that just could not hang on and shut down. Took men on a retreat, a place where we stopped for bait to go fishing, gone, absolutely gone. The closed signs up, just disappeared. They couldn't make it. So we're seeing people stretched as far as they could possibly be stretched, and they can't go much farther. And with the over-regulating of the Democrat Party and the over-regulation of the current administration, it has put such a strain on this nation that it's driven people to do things that have never been, just absolutely go and start these lawsuits to get some relief in their lives. So we talk about issues, I'm shocked. Just an article that came out yesterday about auto insurance. It says this auto insurance premiums will rise 22% more by the end of this year. Let's talk about this fact. Auto insurance premiums will rise 22% more by the end of this year. Now, they've already risen currently at the beginning part of this year, 15%. So your premiums have already risen by 15% in the first half of this year. They're predicted to rise 22% more. And as of right this second, it's been a total increase of 48% to this day since 2021. But now from here forward, 22% more by December 31st. Is it a reality? Yes. Should it be a policy issue? The economy should be a policy issue and talking about what's happening. So I look at this. So on a personal level, mine jumped in its renewal from $160 a month to $308. One more time. We went from $160 a month to $308 upon the renewal. So it is actually happening. That's with nothing changing on our driving record, nothing. That's just government over regulation. Now, they'll cite all the reasons, but you need to understand that the government has taken over the insurance industry and reached into it with its regulations and been doing that for some time. Not just that, but also healthcare. We'll talk about healthcare in a few. So first of all, the economy, just talking about auto insurance. Good grief. Can't afford a house, can barely afford a car. Now your insurance premiums go up by these catastrophic amounts. It is taken its toll. Next, what about the economy? When we talk about the economy, while we're not carrying this label of recession right now at this point, most Americans are going through this personal recession. They really are. Anyway, most of them have exhausted their savings. They've been into their credit. They've trying to just survive. Most of your small businesses have moved to credit, hoping that this recession that they know about, which has been refused to be labeled as such, will pass. But make no mistake, the economy is a shambles at this point. in the last 3 months. So many of the mom and pop organizations, their businesses have folded. And that's what we're seeing. We're also looking at this, at the fact right now, the policies of student loan forgiveness. I see that. Now, don't get me wrong. I need you to understand when I talk about student loan, this is also an economical issue here, an issue for the economy. It is, because when I look at $84 billion in student loans being forgiven coming up, what does that mean? That's taxpayer dollars going in. That's our taxes going in for student loan forgiveness. That's money we didn't take out that people did go and take. And let me explain. Having been on the mission field on multiple occasions out of the country in places, talking to students that were in these countries, I said, you're traveling worldwide. How did you do this? Well, I used my student loans. I went to school, but I also used my student loans to fund these vacations. Now, I know some of you did not do that. I get it. Some of you did not do that. But with an $84 billion bailout to student loans, you funded an irresponsible generation on a lot of levels. And the taxpayer dollar is going to pay that back. One of the things that Harris says when she takes office, her plan is to formulate a plan that tackles the economy. That's what she's saying. She's got no plan right now. She just said, well, when I take office, my plan is to formulate a plan that tackles the economy. Okay. What exactly does that mean? That means she's got no clue, has no idea about the economy and what it needs, but she's formulating a plan, or she'll have a plan by the time she takes office, or when she gets into office, and she'll have one that's tough. You keep hearing that word tough. That's what you keep hearing, but you don't hear the plan. She talked about no taxes on tips all of a sudden, which was Trump's idea. Trump made this promise, but it wasn't just that promise he made. But if you're also a recipient of Social Security income at all, he's talking about there'll be no taxes on your Social Security income, which is an increase in what you take home every week as well. Why is this? Well, we're not hearing about the fact. We're not hearing about that no taxes on Social Security income. We're not hearing about that because what the age-old Democratic playbook, the Democrat playbook here, is that other Republicans going to rob your Social Security and bankrupt it. It's been that way ever since the day that I was alive. Never been the case. Never. Not once has it been the case. But I have seen Democrats go to Social Security and hand it for free to other people. It's been a Democrat playbook talking point since before I was born, as we talk about Social Security. But again, Harris says when she takes office, her plan is to formulate a plan. That sounds like Harris. My plan is to formulate a plan. Okay. If you'd like to know Trump's plan, you can go straight to the website and take a look. He has a plan. Got a vision. It's pretty interesting. But if you're going to talk Social Security here, and let's see which party is going to be for the furtherance of Social Security and really shoring it up and making it great, we've got to talk border just for a second. We'll talk border a little later too, but we're going to talk border just a second. The Harris-Walz plan is to give citizenship to anyone whose foot is on this soil from day one when they take office, to start moving toward legal citizenship for everyone who ever got their feet on this soil. That is terrible, because what does that mean? All will then qualify for Social Security benefits, even if you haven't paid in. Many of them are already receiving health care. Some of them are already receiving Social Security benefits for health care. That was not what you paid in for. Just making sure you understand that. You want a sure way to bankrupt Social Security? Legalize the millions upon millions who have come here illegally. And then give them Social Security. It'll bankrupt Social Security in a short period of time. See, no one's talking about this. The Democrat playbook of legalizing all the illegal immigrants includes the fact that they would get all the Social Security benefits. We do not have the money for that, and our economy is in no shape. Many of these illegal immigrants are already getting paid those benefits. We're not in the condition to do that. Let's talk healthcare as we talk about this too. So as we talk about people crossing the border, healthcare is already being given, already being paid to these illegals. So much so that 15 states, now here come the lawsuits, 15 states sued the Biden administration because their hospitals and healthcare organizations are overrun with illegals that are receiving Obamacare. And it's causing catastrophic effects to the quality of the healthcare in their state on every level. Trillions of dollars right here draining the economy in just this alone. Just this by itself, trillions of dollars are draining the economy. So if we talk about economy and we talk about whose plan, there will never be a solution to what's happening in the economy like this will not do it. You talk about bankrupting Social Security, that'll do it in a heartbeat. And you talk about literally bankrupting this nation, it'll do it right there in a heartbeat. Continuing on the economy, June 26th, 26 states sued the Biden administration over the new electric vehicle rules, the required standards, driving the cost of gas vehicles into oblivion in an attempt to get them off the road. So we have 26 states sue the Biden administration because of their overreaching rules on electric vehicles, climate change. We'll get there in a few minutes. It's not going to happen with climate change and putting electric vehicles on the road. So again, lawsuits brought about against this administration. There's so many more. I can't go into all the details of all of these. How about this? January 7th of this year, the Biden administration is sued for sending $500 million taxpayer dollars to Palestinians that resulted in acts of terrorism. Wow. In other words, we funded the war against ourselves. And they call it the pay to slay lawsuit. Happened at the beginning of this year. If you go back to June of 2023, commercial fishermen sued the Biden administration over regulations that are sinking their business. They cannot fish because the regulations are so difficult. They can't provide, this is food going into your grocery store. They can't do the business that they need to do. So they sue the Biden administration for relief of overreach from regulation. In August of 2023, the Biden administration is sued for the restriction of oil and gas production, costing American jobs and placing U.S. energy in a place of vulnerable insecurity. So we're sued because of oil and gas production. We sue actually to release the restriction on oil and gas production. There's been a fine put on that. In February of 2023, 24 states sued the Biden administration over environmental regulations targeting farmers. These regulations are costing them their businesses and their land. Is there an end? Are you with me? So we've got lawsuits here. We've got lawsuits over healthcare. We got lawsuits over sending $500 million taxpayer dollars to fund the war on terrorism. We got lawsuits that are suing the Biden administration over electric vehicles. Well, lawsuits because hospitals are overrun with people who are getting free health care that are walking in illegals that should not have health care. Meanwhile, we have Harris who vows to back Federal Reserve independence. She'll never interfere in any of their decisions. So they just can run rampant in the things that they do with absolutely no input whatsoever. Again, she said Saturday, I'll be focused on the economy and what we need to do to bring down costs and strengthen the economy overall. At some point, that's what she's trying to tell you. At some point, I'll be focused on the economy and what we need to do to bring down costs and also strengthen the economy overall. Thank you. I feel so much better now. There's such a detailed vision and plan for that, right? There is none. There is none. Just want to make you aware. Trump's plan is spelled out in detail on his website. And at some point, still formulate hers. Make no mistake, she believes in universal free health care for all. and the removal of private insurance. In 2019, she was pushing for this. It's a terrible plan, especially when you make every illegal immigrant a citizen. Our economy cannot take it. There are so many more lawsuits against the Biden administration. But folks, this is one of the reasons why the economy looks like it does. It's amazing. They'll look up and they'll say, well, Trump, he's a liar. He's a liar. And as a matter of fact, the guy from the New York Times that was the evangelical Christian or whatever that said, here's the reason why I'm going to vote for Harris, because basically she's nice and Trump's not. That's bottom line when it comes down to it. The reality is there are policies, and it's important that we understand those policies. I told you last week, both are emotional toddlers. They are. But I can tell you this much. We don't need more of the same of what's going on or worse at this point, especially on the subject of the economy. That's important. I'm not even going to get into taxes. A good rule of thumb to understand is that once a tax is in place, no Democrat will repeal it. They will usually add to it. More money will come out of your pocket with a Democrat in office, according to history, period. So the whole idea of Harris saying, when I become president, there'll be no tax on tips. That's a promise, a campaign promise. It will not be fulfilled. Guaranteed, it will not be fulfilled. They will not repeal a tax that is already there. Just not going to do it. And that's a great rule of thumb to understand. It's a campaign. It's a smoke and mirrors campaign promise. Let's talk about border security. The Harris Walz campaign has already started referring to illegal immigrants as new Americans, with absolutely zero plan to secure the border. Again, let's go back to the lawsuits. May of 2024, the Department of Justice sues the Biden administration, or threatens to sue the Biden administration. The Department of Justice of the Biden administration threatens to sue Iowa, the state of Iowa, over a law passed in their state which prohibits people being in the state if they were denied legal entry or they were deported for some reason. That means that if you're in the state and you have been denied legal entry or you were deported for whatever reason, you're here illegally. And so the federal government, the Department of Justice under the Biden administration, came against the state of Iowa, saying you can't do that. You can't say it's illegal for you to be in our state. Wait a minute. It's illegal for you to be in the United States. Iowa just spelled it out. This is just one lawsuit of so many in so many states that are trying to protect their citizens, since nothing is being done about this on a federal level. That's just border security. That's just one part of it. How about energy independence? In July of 2024, 16 states sued the Biden administration over banning the shipment and exportation of gas outside this country. It's interesting. So Biden bans the shipment of and exportation of gas outside this country. And so 16 states sue to have the right to do that. We talking energy independence here? The federal government stands against the export. It's interesting. Why? Climate change. These climate change initiatives, these same things of which Harris has vowed to be the champion of, and of course Trump's all drill baby drill on day one. Let's get our resources that we have out there and for sale on the world economy and the world market, and stop funding terrorists and to stop funding the wars for terrorism. Perfect. What about national security? In June of 2023, for the first time in 23 years, the terror watch list, they have the terror watch list encounters at the border are at an all-time high. Again, June 2023, for the first time in 23 years, the encounters on the terror watch list at the border are at an all-time high. Last month alone, 358 of these encounters happened at the border. 99 were released into the U.S. Well, hello. So much for border security. Let's talk about on a worldwide scale. I think it's amazing. Biden Biden told the countries that were going to attack American interest and bases, don't do it. Whatever you do, I'm telling you, don't do it. He said it 177 times. And within 24 hours, they attacked American installations and interest 172 times. So he said it 177 times, and 172 times they attacked. Oh, that's deterrent. And of course, how did we respond to those attacks? Well, we responded a total of 10 times. We responded a total of 10 times, and we had to wait a number of days before we responded so we could decide on what we were going to do. Now, that's leadership for you. Not much deterrence that's there. By the way, I could see right now, we can actually see right now with what's happening with the debate, with the policy issues, with the fact that Ms. Harris isn't going to take not one question because she's still trying to figure out what she's going to do or who she is at this point. You cannot expect that there's not going to be any you can expect there won't be any retaliation. It'll take days to figure out how do we respond to this? Hold on, I got to go hide in my room I need a timeout for a second before I can. That's exactly what you're about to face. Not much deterrence. As a matter of fact, let's just talk radical Islam for just a second. That thing that everybody's defending that they think is so great. We want to go move to Palestine that's what you hear all of this, right? Let's talk radical Islam, where your animals are considered to be of much greater worth than your women or your girls. One more time. Radical Islam, where your animals are considered to be of much greater worth than your women or your girls. Now let's see Harris say, don't do it to radical Islamic terrorists. What do you think they're going to do? Think they're going to actually give any credibility to that word? They're not. And by the way, yeah, am I talking gender? Yeah. Am I talking the fact that I am, oh my gosh, he's chauvinistic? No, I'm just telling you the reality. Those of you that glorify the idea of radical Islam, especially the women that are glorifying this idea of radical Islam, they have no value for women whatsoever, nor did they listen to a single word being said by a leader who is female. Just saying. We might not see gender, but I guarantee you they do. Who honestly believes that anyone's going to listen to the joyful candidate here? As a matter of fact, the more joyful she looks, airheadish like that at this point, there's no deterrent at all. Let's talk gender reality. Folks, let's get real right here for a second. Let's talk chromosomes and science for just a second. And the reality of a man is a man and a woman is a woman. A boy is a boy and a girl is a girl, period. I mean, designed that way, you've got the chromosomes to prove it, and that's the reality of it. The Democrat Party is definitely not the party of gender reality, period. The Democrat Party is the party of gender fantasy. I don't care how many times you change the pronouns, does not matter. The reality is you're a boy or a girl, period. And you can count the chromosomes to figure that out. In May of 2024, 15 states sued to block the Biden administration, their Health and Human Services gender identity rule, which included government assistance and the requirement of medical providers to perform surgeries and administer hormone drugs to children and adults for the purpose of gender transition. Whether or not the treatment was even appropriate doesn't matter. You must offer it according to the federal rule. 15 states have to sue to block this from happening in their state. Let's talk gender reality. Because when you're having to go to this level to join together 15 states so that you can hold on to reality, that's a big deal. Or how about in June of 2024, Texas and Montana sued the Biden administration over being required for their states to use their Medicaid funds for the same exact procedures. For the states to have the right to say what they use their funds for. That's a big deal. A little bit of overreaching going on there. And we're having to sue to get the rights back. July of 2024, a federal judge blocks Biden's rule in 4 states over public schools allowing transgender men and boys to play on girls' and women's sports teams and be in their locker rooms. Again, just the tip of the iceberg on these policies and these lawsuits. On this issue alone, you should vote like your daughters' and granddaughters' chances to compete in sports and their rights to have private spaces to dress and undress depends on your vote. We ought to be running to vote for that. There is no mistake, make no mistake, the Democrat Party itself refuses to see absolute reality here. It is a fact. And we see Harris championing this and Walz handing tampons out to fourth grade boys. Listen to me, folks, no good will ever come from this delusion ever. What about the green agenda, climate change? April 2024, 21 states challenge the Biden administration emissions rule, and a federal judge blocks the rule. By the way, we have the cleanest air in the world. The United States has the cleanest air in the world. When you look around at countries like India, who have literally no emissions at all, restraint at all. China, no emission restraint at all. It's so bad in the United States that the Honda stopped making small engines because they didn't want to deal with the emissions laws. It is seriously affecting our economy. But a federal judge then blocks the emissions rule. It's just more government overregulation. And again, Harris agrees to champion the cause. Trump vows to deregulate and drive the costs down. And there is still zero evidence of true climate change according to the leftist agenda. And the way that they spell it out, there's still zero evidence of that whatsoever. It's a narrative being pushed. And there's a ton of money being pushed with it. And a ton of kickback coming to these candidates from people who are starting new companies and working on solar and wind and all of that. A ton of kickback coming to the politicians on this. Climate change, just more government regulation. Let's talk about crime. Let's talk about gun control. Harris, who begins in her political world, begins with the defund police movement, scaling back law enforcement, allowing protesters to burn down major cities and to defend them as a lawyer and the ability and their right to be able to do so. Even the other day, standing up to talk about those rights. Now, she goes back and forth and waffles back and forth depending on the crowd she's in on this. It's kind of like Walz, who literally goes to the coal mining areas of his state wearing a coal miner's T-shirt. And then he goes to the southern parts of the state where they're against coal mining, and he wears a T-shirt against coal mining. Just pander on any side that you want. You got Walz's wife actually rejoicing in the riots, loving the smell of burning tires. It's crazy. And allowing the cities to burn until it just wasn't popular, and something had to be done about it. And he, again, like everything else, we wait a few days before we get it done. He finally gets something done. We have to wait. Oh, gosh, how do we combat this while the cities burn? Do you need, I'm telling you, in 2024, we do not need. 2025, we definitely do not need hesitation in leadership. Just needed to say it. The Democrat reaction time is deplorable. Wait for days to respond nationally and internationally, if they respond at all. It's no wonder we look weak. Just say it. I don't have time to go into all the endless failures on this subject alone. There's just zero deterrent. And that will continue under Harris. Because, after all, she's the joyful candidate, though. May of 2024, Texas files a lawsuit over the new gun sale requirements that make law-abiding citizens that are gun owners criminally guilty for engaging in the private sale of a firearm to another citizen. By the way, this is constitutionally protected here, constitutionally protected. But Texas has to file a lawsuit against the Biden administration over the new gun sale requirements. And Harris and Walz agree to crack down even harder on law-abiding citizens and the ownership of their guns. Listen, these new restraints we're talking about only protect criminals. That's it. Just saying. Can we talk religious freedoms? May of 2024, a Catholic service organization sues the Biden administration for religious discrimination over a permit for a Catholic Mass on Memorial Day to remember those who died in service to our country. Wow. With religious freedoms, go the freedom of speech. And that's already beginning. In June of 2024, the Supreme Court rules in favor of the Biden administration to censor, suppress, and restrict speech on social media, actually allowing the government to push the narrative. So at this point, really anything against the narrative just won't be tolerated. We've not yet seen to what extreme the Harris administration would take that. I'm not sure I would want to know. Trump has vowed to stop censorship because he's been one that has been censored and champion religious freedoms and freedom of speech. Again, go to his website. You can see. Other policies, abortion, we already know. We know her stance on that. We know his stance on that. Support for Israel. She's having a difficult time dancing between two worlds here. A large part of her party does not support Israel, so she waffles trying to please both, which makes her the typical politician, kind of. I'm not really sure what she is. We're not really sure what she is because, for real, she hasn't been much of anything but just a follower at this point. Trump, obviously, we see as a passionate supporter of Israel. When it comes to the Supreme Court, Harris is in favor of continuing the Biden reforms. Of course, Trump is not, and so on, and so on. And you can go to Trump's website and see his plan. There's a plan and a vision that Trump has actually laid out. So you can go and look at all of those things. And when you go to Harris's website, there isn't much on policy there, but she is a joyful candidate. So I felt like today we needed to talk policy. I think we needed to talk policy because America depends on it. America needs to know what is coming. I think we can know automatically. But the question is, can we compete against really the media narrative, which has her as the media darling? It's what got Obama elected. The question's going to be that media narrative that is going like crazy. Is that narrative going to go until the election, which again starts on September the 6th, but the debate isn't until September 10th. So if you go vote on September the 6th, you won't know what the policies are. And once you discover what they are, you can't retract your vote if you've run out there to vote whichever way you've voted. Someone needs to talk policy. Something other than the joyful candidate or the harsh candidate. These are very serious times. And as I said at the beginning of the podcast, we see what's going on worldwide. We're teeter-tottering on World War III. We're teeter-tottering on the economy. We're teeter-tottering. We need some decision. We don't need any hesitation whatsoever. We need some decision on a policy that someone is passionate about to move forward. This is important. The truth is, this election, either way, will fundamentally change America. It's not about popularity or who can smile the best or who has the most photogenic opportunity. It's not about whose personality is more grumpy or harsh. The truth is, these are harsh times, and really to deal with this, we need someone to step up who could say what needs to be said. With Trump, what you see is what you get. With Harris, who knows what you get? It really is about who can lead. It's about who can lead the American people through extremely difficult times. So what does that mean for us now? If I were to go back 40 days in retrospect, and I've gone back to these court cases over the last few years, there are a couple of things I think when I look at it biblically. The first thing is this. I got to look at 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. And it says this: "Therefore I exhort, first of all, that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and a giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and all who are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and reverence. For this is good and acceptable in the sight of our Savior, who desires all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth." What is it? I think, first of all, we should pray and pray hard. Right now, we should get into this prayer time. We should pray and fast, I think, and do this intently until we get to this day of election. Freedom depends on it. Prosperity, is it important? It is. Freedom and prosperity is important, there's no doubt. But that's not where the happiness lies when it comes down to it. It really isn't. The scripture is pretty clear in Proverbs 29:18. It says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." It's clear. Without vision, people cast off restraint, and they run wild because there's no instruction. There's no plan to follow. Without vision, law and order disappear, and dark times come to a nation and to a people. The truth is, vision actually does bring joy, and it brings order, and it brings happiness, especially vision that follows the law of God. Because the vision that follows the law of God brings success to a nation on every realm. Every single thing we have talked about today, every policy we have talked about today, with vision that follows the law of God, it brings success to a nation, and it will bring success to this nation. I wanted to talk policy today. I wanted to talk history of this past administration, all of the lawsuits of people who are fighting to hold on to the rights and defend themselves against the overreach of the government, so that you could see the reasons for why we're in the shape we're in right now after 3.5 years, and why these lawsuits continue to come and get more aggressive every single day. People literally trying to fight to exist. We need to pray. For those of you that are believers in Jesus Christ, we need to pray. We need to stop and literally get on our knees and pray for this nation, for the leaders, and for those to come. I hope and pray that what happened in France and the Lord's Supper mockery that we saw on that day is not what ushers in the end times. I really hope and pray that that's not the case. I would not be shocked if it is. But I'll tell you, if this nation goes through 4 years of indecision, 4 years of hesitation, 4 years of no deterrent, 4 years of no plan, 4 years of no protection, 4 years of the removal of the freedom of speech, 4 years of more government overreaching, 4 more years of this, I cannot imagine where we will be. Pray. Pray about how you will vote. Pray. Pray for those national leaders. Pray. Pray hard. Look and see who has vision and who does not. This is important. Now, I know some of you think, well, what was this, an ad for Donald Trump? No, it's not been. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's been talking about policies on the other side, period, just policy, because someone's got to talk policy where it's not being talked about. So I wanted the time to do that today. In retrospect, look back over the last really 2 years of the things that have been going on in the nation, the last 40 days of what's happened in this nation, and pray about what's to come. That's important. You've been listening to Grounded, the place to hear the salty truth. So what now? Well, first of all, if you do not know Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord, you can. Today, the first step in doing that is to recognize that you're a sinner and that you've never asked Jesus to come into your life and save you of your sins. That's the one thing that's between you and God. It stands between the two of you. So if you stop today and say, Lord Jesus, I know that I'm a sinner. I have violated your law. There's no doubt about that. I need you to forgive me of my sins so that I can walk with you and so that you can guide me. So today, if you want Jesus as Savior, right where you are, you can stop and say, Lord, come into my life. Save me. Forgive me of my sins. Lord, today, help me to walk in your ways from this day forward and guide and lead me every day. You could stop where you are and cry out to Jesus Christ right now for that. Secondly, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, pray, pray, pray. In the weeks to come, we'll talk about a number of different things. We're not going to necessarily talk about all of this policy and, go back all through all of this. I'm getting tired of looking at in all of this anyway. But we'll have some great things coming. I'm looking forward to covering coming up actually within the next few podcasts, 7 deadly sins, the 7 things that are detestable to God. In that podcast, just clarifying some of those things that need to be, I think, clarified. I'm looking forward to getting into that. Other things, I'm looking forward to getting back to some comedy here too, as well. And but I know you agree with me. These are serious moments in history, and it calls for a serious word in these serious moments. I appreciate you listening to these today, and I hope today that you could take some of these things to heart. I tell you, I encourage you. Those books that I read off, go back if you want to, rewind that, write those down. And look into those. They're really, really good. I hope you guys have a great day, and we will see you next Monday.